What is up, everybody on YouTube? It's your boy, the Memphis Accelerate, coming at you with another top 10 list today, listing out the top 10 archetypes that I believe deserve more support. Now, again, this is a very subjective sort of deal. If there's an archetype I don't mention that you feel deserves more support, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to hear from you. So enough said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to list these cards off, these archetypes, and I'm going to give you some idea as to what I would like, added to them. Number 10, the Kuriboh archetype. Okay, look, I have an unhealthy obsession with Kuribos. They're my brothers in arms. I want more support from them, and I want it now. What do I want? Everything. When do I want it? Right now. Number 9, Allies of Justice. Allies of Justice are a complete joke. It's a deck that's completely focused around battling light monsters, and that's about it. And barring Catastor and a couple of the main deck monsters like Salvo and I think it was Cycle Reader, I can't remember, but yeah, there's other than those, none of the monsters do jack, really. They really don't. And it's an archetype with 0 swarming, and they have no spell traps, so it would be nice to see them getting some new support. How would I go about it? Mostly just give them some spell traps. Like maybe 3 or 4 spells and 1 trap card. Maybe give them a new Synchro or maybe a Link monster, one of those. But yeah, it doesn't need to be like super complicated new stuff. Just give them something, some swarming, some Synchro backing up, things like that. You could make Allies of Justice at least stand on their own 2 feet. Number 8, the Watt archetype. Now, Watt's got support in the form of Watt Train, but that doesn't do that terribly much for Watt. I mean, it helps, but it takes a full turn for it to help. Plus, it needs setup to work, so it's a nice card, but I feel like Watts could do a little bit better. How would I go about that? I would say not so much the main deck of Watts. I mean, a little bit, but basically maybe like 1 new monster, couple spells. Don't really need to worry about the traps as much. Maybe if you want to throw out a trap. Mostly work on the extra deck, because the Watt Synchro monsters, they don't really do anything. They're pretty garbo. I mean, other than like attacking directly, which is like, that's all they do. And so, it would be nice if, Watts had some better extra deck things to play around with. And Thunder monsters in general, because, come on. Number 7, we're going to go for Guardians. Now, Guardians is an interesting bunch of monsters that you can only summon by having specific equip spells on the board. And other than, say, Guardian Iatos, who is played in a completely different deck, most Guardians are pretty garbo. So how could you fix Guardians? This is a tricky one. It's very tricky. Some spell traps that aren't equip spells would be nice. Something, maybe if there was like a continuous spell that you could play and you could equip spells to it. That way you could then summon the Guardian and then equip the equip spell to that Guardian. Something like that would be possible. Like spell traps, maybe a new Guardian, but then it would have to be like way easier to summon and be like the complete, like, you would just focus on that one Guardian, not really on the rest. So, it can be done. It would be tricky. And Konami only gets 1 chance at it, but it could be done. Number 6, Arcana Force. This is another old archetype. Another really janky one. These are guys all based around coin flips and the tarot. The good old tarot. And they did kind of get a support card, if you want to call it a support card. Is this a support card? Not really. It's pretty trash, honestly. But yeah, Arcana Force, it can be made a lot better. First off, finish off the tarot. There's a bunch of members of the tarot, like the Star and the Hermit and a few of the others that just never got made into cards. Give them, 2 beneficial effects rather than 1 good, 1, oh my goodness, I'm going to lose the game effect, which is kind of how a lot of them were like. Give them some spell traps that are actually good, and don't rely exclusively on coin flips. Okay? Give them some stuff that doesn't require a coin flip to work. And I feel like Arcana Force could actually be not great, but at least a fun deck to screw around with. Number 5, we're getting into an interesting one. This is Dark Scorpions, which is an archetype based around 5 monsters and a spare monster that nobody talks about, as well as a spell card that swarms out all the members of the Dark Scorpions, provided you have Donta Luke on the board. So how does one fix Dark Scorpions? First off, a generic searcher that isn't Mine the Thorn, like a spell or something. Make it a quick play spell, why not? A couple of spells, some traps. Don't really need to make new monsters. If you want to make monsters, they would have to be monsters that either protect your Dark Scorpions, like a hand trap that protects your monsters from being destroyed by card effects or something, or a monster that, you know, you can discard to have Dark Scorpions attack directly for a turn, something like that, for example. So, you know, you can't really add to the Dark Scorpions unless you really wanted to, but you don't really need to. But really, just like spell traps for them is what they need. And then stuff like, you know, just spell traps. Swarming, they already have. Just give them some protection and some searching. And there you go. That's what you gotta do. Number 4, Volcanic. Now, I know a lot of people want Volcanic support. We've been long waiting for it, and they deserve it. I didn't put them in number 1, however, because unlike a lot of the members on this list, they're more likely to get new support. Now, what can we do for Volcanics? Enough people have made, you know, they've talked about what to do for Volcanics. Give them a big fusion that burns and destroys everything. Give them something that negates and burns everything. Give them something that burns things and then burns things harder. You know, Volcanics have a play style. Don't screw it up. Just add it to it. Oh, and give them a generic searcher. Like, you know, freaking Ice Barriers have a generic searching spell. Give one to Volcanics. Number 3, Venom. So Venom's an old archetype around snakes. They focus on a field spell, kind of like Mystic Mine, except that I can actually stand Venom Swamp. And their gimmick is putting counters on opponents' monsters to weaken them. That's about it. Also, they have a towers in the form of Venomanaga, but we're not talking about that right now. So, Venoms. How do we fix Venoms, of all things? They have some decent stuff. They actually have some surprisingly good stuff, like Snake Deity's Command, for example, which is an old trap that can negate stuff by just revealing a Venom monster in your hand. So, honestly, to fix Venoms, first thing we need to do is give them some more monsters. You know, some monsters that just, you know, work for swarming, work for adding more counters, things like that. You know, more counters, more swarming, more attack reduction. Not even just attack reduction. Give them things that, like, maybe give them some spell traps that, like, negate effects of monsters with the Venom counters. That might be a bit much. No, it's fine. You know, it's fine. Give them something like that. So, you know, give them some, like I said, monsters, some spell traps. Maybe give them an extra deck monster that's, you know, something. Just don't make it lame like the Reptilian one. That Link monster is kind of garbo. Number 2, the Reactor archetype. So Reactors are a bunch of monsters who are played like once or twice in the anime. They have these effects that if a spell trap or monster effect corresponding to that monster is activated, you destroy it and inflict burn damage. You don't even negate with them. And then you can also combine all 3 if all 3 are on the board to summon a monster that also pops and burns. Skyfire indeed. How would you fix this bunch? Honestly, you might have to do a complete retrain like what was done with Armed Dragons. So we might have to retrain all the Reactors and Skyfire to give them swarm potential, negation on top of the destruction and burn, and easier method of summoning out the Skyfire retrain. The Skyfire retrain also needs to be able to negate and burn and do something else. Give it protection, for example. Give it protection from stuff. How about if we have the new Skyfire float into the old Skyfire, kind of like what the new Trishula does? That would be something. And also give them spell traps as well. There's like 4 cards in the Reactor archetype, not counting Dark Flat Top. I mean, that might be part of the archetype. But, yeah, there's a lot that could be added to that archetype to make it good. So, I want to see something, Konami. Give us something. And the last archetype we'll be talking about today, number 1, Iron Chain. Now, Iron Chain is an archetype, very maligned, They were used by some security man in a jail, and that guy used every single card from said archetype in one duel, and then they were never seen again. And it's a shame because Iron Chain, I feel, could do some stuff. I mean, Repairman's not a once per turn sort of revival of a monster, so you could certainly screw around with Iron Chain Repairman. So what could we do with Iron Chains? Because we can't just have them do all the milling anymore. The milling, we don't need no more milling. Or at the very least, we need to make the milling better, perhaps. So give them everything. Give them some monsters that swarm. Give them some spell traps that debilitate your opponent more for being milled. Give them a field spell that's like, if your opponent's cards get milled by Iron Chain effects, then those cards get banished face down, for example. Give them a new Synchro monster that does something when cards get banished. I don't care what it does. It doesn't, give it, give them a Synchro monster that's, not only mills, but your opponent has to discard a card when they mill. Something like that. Just completely annihilate your opponent, okay? Iron Chains need something, and they need it now. So anyway, guys, that's going to be my list for decks that need the more support. Hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, as always, smash like if you enjoyed. And let me know if there's any archetypes you feel I missed or any archetypes that you feel I shouldn't have been on this list. I enjoy the discourse. And next time, we're going to be taking a look at another top 10 list. We're going to be taking a look at cards that could become archetypes in of themselves. So I'm going to see you guys there. And until next time, your boy Memphis is signing out. I'll see y'all next time.